You slept surprisingly well that night, and when you awoke in the morning, you had started to put on the orange jumpsuit you had gotten so accustomed to wearing. It was already halfway up your thighs before you realized your mistake, and you were thankful that you were at least able to laugh at yourself as you put on your normal clothes. You held your lightsaber in your hands, tossing it back and forth before you set it down. You didn't like the fact that you were leaving it behind, but you knew there wasn't a chance you could really bring it with you. Kylo would most assuredly confiscate it from you, or you could lose it, and you knew you weren't going to get another. Besides, if you did die, at least it would be there for Annie to inherit. You can hear Annie and Ladson starting to wake up and quickly make your way out the door and down to the command center. You would say your goodbyes when you had to, and not a second before. It was still early in the morning, and the command center wasn't as crowded as it had been before, as only a handful of people operated the consoles on either side of the room. You see a familiar orange and white droid roll up to you, and you force a smile to your lips as he stops in front of you. "Why, hello there, BB-8. BB-8 emits a few beeps and whistles, and you think you caught a greeting in there, but you couldn't be sure exactly what he was saying. He wishes you luck on your mission. You spin around sharply to see Poe standing behind you, and you're silently thankful that you're not blushing just at the sight of him. He looks confident and not at all concerned, and you try to siphon a bit of his positive energy as you turn towards Leia and the calamari accompanying her. "How are you feeling?" she asks as she stops in front of you, and you just shrug your shoulders. "Confident," you reply with a quick glance in Poe's direction, and it's all you can do not to wink at him. Leia just lets out a deep breath as she looks at you nervously. "Please be on your guard. I can't promise your safety." "You never did," you tell her. "We don't know what's going to happen, but you allowed the others to train me, and this is me repaying that debt." "It's not a debt," Leia says firmly, but doesn't push the inquiry any further as she pulls up a hologram of the galaxy on the round console in the middle of the room and turns to introduce the calamari standing beside her. "This is Gil Akbar. As I believe Rey has already told you, he was once the Grand Admiral of the Republic Starfleet, but he dropped the title when he retired years ago. As our master strategist, he'll explain your part in this operation." He steps forward and shakes your hand. "So good to finally meet you, although I wish it wasn't on such solemn terms," he says. "When we pull this off, we'll be a large step closer to finally wiping Palpatine's legacy from the galaxy. Ordinarily, we would have briefed you along with all the other commanders heading the mission, but given the clandestine nature of your role, I'm sure you understand the need to limit what you know of the operation." "Naturally," you reply as calmly as you can, but inwardly you can't help but snort. "Clandestine. Right. As if everyone wasn't already talking about your role from behind closed doors anyway." You sneak a look at Poe, but he's not looking at you, and he seemed more or less unfazed. If he was jealous or uncomfortable with the situation in any way, he was hiding it well. Besides, you knew the point Akbar was trying to make. If Kylo was able to overpower you and read your thoughts, the less you knew, the better. You quickly focus back on Akbar as he turns to the panel to control the hologram. The view of the galaxy zooms in on the west, on the unknown regions. Somewhere between two stars, a large red sphere appears with a line label that reads, "First Order Exclusion Zone." Given the extreme personal risk you're taking, I think it's only fair that you at least understand the urgency of this mission and why the timing of your offer to help could not have been more perfect. Our scouts have been trying to penetrate this particular zone of First Order control, but it's extremely well defended, and now we think we know why. Our intelligence indicates that the First Order is in the final stage of constructing their first true dreadnought to complement the Resurgent-class Star Destroyers. Based on the transmissions we've intercepted, they fittingly named it the Inquisitor, and it's rumored to be Snoke's personal flagship. Our project's place completion of construction within 3 weeks, so we have a very small window to work with before this new terror is operational. But If you see here, however, the map zooms back out to a wider view of the galactic sector before zooming back in to another sector just beyond the border of the western reaches, where a smaller blinking yellow sphere appeared, labeled Resolute Battle Group. This is where Ren's personal flagship is located, Akbar explains. He calls it the Resolute. Can't say I'm surprised he went and named it after the ship his grandfather commanded during the Clone Wars. Currently, the full fleet escort that would usually surround it is seemingly busy defending the exclusion zone, so there's only a light cruiser and support frigate. Given the blatant lack of subtlety in his proposition to you, you stretch your neck out to the side as you see Poe glance at you out of the corner of your eye. I figured Ren must either lack all sense or that this was a trap they were confident could not be foiled and didn't even bother to hide. I've since concluded that it's the former, as we've already located the frigate Wolfpack lying in wait to ambush us from hyperspace and have an unpleasant surprise planned for them in return. It's quite a sloppy, desperate move, which shows Ren must be operating his battle group independent of any central strategy. Another advantage for us, since we can be confident the finalizer isn't lying in wait for us, since General Hux would never have tolerated such a grave tactical error, even as a diversion. You just raise your eyebrows as you breathe out through your nose, trying your best not to laugh. You knew the First Order was losing, but the fact that it was because Kylo Ren sucked at military strategy was somehow ridiculously funny to you. Not that you would probably be any better, but apparently his force skills and raw temper were definitely compensating for something. He may have had power, but power without intelligence and direction were all but meaningless when fighting a war. Akbar breaks you from your thoughts with a dramatic sigh. The Anakin Skywalker I served with in the Clone Wars would be furious if he knew his military legacy was being squandered this way. If Ren's paying attention, he may already know. He stops short as though he suddenly realized something, and he turns to face one of the operators on a wall console. Charis, hurry to tracking and tell them to review transmission 791 for discrepancies. I need that analysis done before the briefing this afternoon. The operator disappears through the door, and Akbar turns back to you. So, where was I? He asks himself as he taps the side of his head with one long finger. Whatever that was about, you assumed it had nothing to do with you. Although curious, you decide to just let it go. The less you knew, the less Kylo would be able to learn about the Resistance's strategy if he was able to overpower you and make it into your thoughts. You were just explaining that Kylo Ren is a terrible military strategist and he's embarrassing his grandfather's legacy, sir. You say as coolly as possible, and Poe presses the back of his hand into his mouth to suppress a laugh while Leia just rolls her eyes. Oh, right, yes. He taps the console, and as the hologram zooms in on the yellow sphere, it resolves into the unmistakable wedge shape of a First Order Star Destroyer, flanked by two other ships you did not recognize. After another tap, you see a red rectangle highlighted on the Star Destroyer's port bow. From our experiences with the Resurgent class, this appears to be their main receiving hangar. On the off chance they grant you clearance to manually dock your fighter, this is where you need to go. Now, for your route. The hologram zooms back out to show the southern half of the galaxy, and you watch as a thin red line snakes from Dakar to various labeled checkpoint systems, such as Sullust, Ietu, Nalo, Noahon, and Takodana, before coming to an end at Jakku. Hopefully, you wouldn't end up crashing there too. You can hear light footsteps approaching from behind you, and you turn around to see Wedge walk in. Ah, Captain Antilles. Glad you could join us, Akbar says in a friendly voice. Sorry I got here late, Wedge says in a quick apology. Don't let me interrupt anything. Please, continue. This is the route Chewbacca proposed to me to minimize both your fuel use and the chances of a mistaken Republic interception, Akbar explains. While the Republic is well aware we are sending you in as the hook to finally capture Ren, we neglected to inform them that you will be arriving in a Special Forces TIE fighter to eliminate the chance of you being immediately shot down by the Resolute's fighter patrols. The fighter only carries so much fuel, so it's vital that you manually program the hyperdrive along this route to maximize the efficiency. Don't worry about memorizing the checkpoints, as a list will be provided to you before you leave. Once you reach Jakku, you will have to activate the fighter's recall protocol, since the unknown regions lack sufficient navigation references for a proper manual jump. Ackbar stops and turns to Wedge. Care to weigh in on the route planning, Captain? Wedge uncrosses his arms and seems to think for a moment before he begins speaking. Lack of reference isn't the only reason you'll have to do a recall jump. While it seems Ren may be a tactical fool, most of his men will probably still be on alert regardless. According to past response patterns, it is likely you will be intercepted by a fighter escort and captured by a tractor beam upon your arrival. So it's vital that everything about your trip looks independent and unplanned, since the fighter's navigation logs are the first thing they'll check. The evasive nature of Chewie's route makes it look like you're running away from Dakar in the first place, but the recall jump will seal the illusion. All carrier-based fighters have a recall mode so that they can always return home to rearm and refuel, but it'd usually be incredibly stupid for an outsider to jump that way, so using that instead of any pre-programmed coordinates will give the impression that you don't really know what you're doing and downplay the threat you pose. I can tell you that a recall jump is chaotic and never pleasant, though, and you might find yourself stick to your stomach. You internally wince, but successfully selling the trick is absolutely vital to being able to rescue you. Given how many of these elite fighters they've lost, they will be eager to reclaim this one once the investigation clears it, transmitter and all. You tilt your head to the side and consider this as Ackbar continues talking. So they wanted to send you the long way around to make it look like you were literally searching the galaxy for him, instead of just heading straight there. That worked for you. Pretending to have no idea what you're doing and making things up as you went along was apparently one of your specialties. The fighter has always been flight-worthy, but the extensive preparations of late have centered around installing Chewbacca's undetectable transmitter to track your location, should Ren gain some sense and decide to relocate. Given the crude trap he has established, this is unlikely, but still possible. Good luck, and may the Force be with you. Any more questions? Poe asks as he turns to face you. None, you reply smoothly. I'm ready to do this. Leia pulls you into a tight embrace and you hug her back. She pulls away to steady your face and nods to herself. You are much stronger now. I can feel it. We all have the utmost confidence in what you're about to do. May the Force be with you. Thank you. You nod to her as she releases you, and then turn to Poe and walk with him side by side out into the hangar where everyone is already waiting. Hey guys, you say brightly as possible as you walk up to them. Finn immediately pulls you into his arms, rocking you back and forth. You're going to do great, he tells you. Remember, just grab a blaster, set it to stun, and zzz, knock him out, and we'll take it from there. Sounds like a plan, you laugh as you let go. He claps you on the shoulder before you turn to Rey, and she gives you a tight-lipped smile before she wraps her arms around you. Be careful, she says, speaking gently into your ear. I'm going to worry about you. Don't, you tell her as you pull away. You know I can handle it. You've seen what I've been through before. I know, she says teasingly. That's why I'm worried. You just laugh and shake your head as you turn to Ladson. Be safe, he says firmly. Don't do anything stupid like you did the last time. I did plenty of stupid things the last time, you tell him. You're going to have to be more specific. He just shakes his head as he pulls you into a quick hug. I mean it. You better come back, because they are not going to be happy if I have to steal a ship and come after you myself. You wouldn't be alone in that, Poe adds, and you can't help but smirk in his direction as you bend down to face Annie. Will you be gone long? He asks, as if he's starting to get second thoughts about you leaving. Where are you going? Is it dangerous? When you get older, I think you'll find that quite literally everything you do can be dangerous in one way or another, you tell him as you tap the tip of his nose with your index finger. But what's life without a little danger, right? You scoop him up into a big hug, swing gently from side to side. You're the man of the house for a little while. Take care of Ladson. Keep him out of trouble. I will, Annie says solemnly, and you can't help but laugh as you stand up and turn awkwardly towards Poe. So, I'll, see you, you mumble awkwardly, waving your hand in the air as if trying to materialize words into your mouth. Yeah, Poe says as he wraps his arms around you in a quick hug. You pull away from him awkwardly, keenly aware that you are being watched very closely. So, what do you think? You say quickly, turning to the rest of the group. Think I can do this? I'll be fine, right? Finn grins as he punches his fist into his other hand. You got this. Believe in yourself, Rey reminds you. You are strong enough to face him. I have no doubts. I'll be fine, you say, turning to Poe, as long as someone taught me well enough so I don't crash the fighter on the way there. Poe just grins, and you believe this is the first time you've seen him actually a little awkward. It was kind of endearing, in a cute way. Hey, Poe, Finn says suddenly, you should help her out. Make sure she's all settled on board and everything. Latson literally throws back his head as he rolls his eyes, but you just smile. Yeah, that's a good idea. You bend down to Annie's level and give him another quick hug. Take care of yourself, okay? I love you. I will, Annie says, and you smile and give everyone one last wave as you head inside the ship with Poe following at your heels. Take care of them, you say, making sure you're both out of sight as you turn to face him. Seriously, make sure Latson and Annie are okay while I'm gone. Annie seems fine, but Latson... They'll be fine, Poe says quickly. I'll make sure of it, but remember, you won't be there for long. As soon as you leave, we're going to start planning the counteroffensive. You won't be there for more than a few days, so get ready. A few days, you shrug, trying to seem flippant, but suddenly you grab Poe and wrap your arms around him, burying your face in his shoulder. I'm fine, you tell him, although the emotion in your voice betrays you. You can do this, Poe says firmly as he holds you at arm's length. I believe in you. You reach up and slip both hands over his cheeks as you kiss him, pressing your body into his. You hold yourself in place for a moment as his hands slip around your waist, and for a moment you just stand there, kissing him, refusing to let in any other thoughts that would distract you from the taste of Poe's lips against yours. Okay, you say as you pull away. If I'm going to do this, then I should go. Good luck, Poe says, and as you settle yourself into the pilot seat, you wish that those hadn't been what could be his last words to you. Luck would only get you so far. The rest you would have to do yourself. As you strap in, you take a quick glance around the cockpit. The controls were basically identical to the ones in the Omega shuttle, except the screens were a little smaller, and all around you were panels and control systems that you had never seen before in your life. Considering that Poe had never mentioned them, you figured that they were something that you didn't need to concern yourself with. Attached to the console screen was a folded sheet of red-edged flimsiplast, and you quickly picked it up and unfolded it to read Poe's scribbled handwriting. Operation Dauntless, TI-SF SJ 59207, Designation Surprise Package, Itinerary, Sullust, Obsidian and Lava, EA2, Blue Depths, Nalo, Mountains, Kolonica, Nahoin, Jungle Planet with Bug People. Don't go there, trust me. Takodana, Toloran, Orange Gas Giant, Jakku, Races don't land here. She doesn't want to go back. Resolute, your final destination. Can't wait for you to get back. Semicolon, close parentheses. Tear sheet to auto-incinerate. As you read it over, you couldn't help but gnaw on your lower lip until you could have sworn you tasted the slick, salty taste of blood. Did Poe really just draw a winky face on your official trip itinerary? Really? You hope the thing could auto-incinerate, because if it couldn't, you would be in a lot of trouble. Considering that the entire thing was a mission objective, you knew that the most damning thing in itself would be if Kylo got his hands on it. The winky face would probably be what ensured your demise once and for all. You shake your head and hang it up on a conveniently placed clip off to your left for easy reference. Underneath it, you saw one more small piece of red-edged, self-destructing flimsoplast on the screen, and again recognized Poe's scrawled handwriting, hoping beyond all hopes this wasn't going to be a mushy love letter of farewell. The winky face had already turned your face a bright crimson, and you weren't sure what else he would write or what effect it would have on you. Even still, it might contain something important to the mission at hand, and so you had to open it. Last lesson. Don't start the solar reactors until you get into the air, since it sets off all kinds of alarms in our fighters. The fighter starts just like I showed you on the Omega, but start it with the onboard power cells. You need every last bit of power to get to the ship, so the charging umbilical will still be attached until you're ready to leave. Once you've got it started up, make sure to verify it's disconnected. Don't make the same dumb mistake I did back on the finalizer. When you start the solar reactors, don't be surprised by the sudden kick when the engines briefly go to full power, and don't forget to put the shields up before you climb. I know you're probably still blushing for my last message, so I won't distract you any further. Just know that we all believe in you. You can do this, and we'll be there to get you before you know it. May the Force be with you. You blushed harder as you tucked the note into a strap in your harness. It was going to be a long flight, and you didn't feel like destroying the note quite yet. Something told you that you were going to be rereading the last part of his note over and over again. How did he know that winky face would make you blush? Was it just an assumption, or did he really know you that well? How many times did you blush in his presence anyway? It wasn't something you wanted to think about, especially not now, of all times, and so you quickly shook your head to clear as you focused on the task at hand. Looking down at the console, you flip a small red toggle in the lower left corner and watch as the small screen comes to life. You flick through the pages until you find the one for the fighter's power systems and press Start from Reserve Power. All around you, the systems suddenly come to life, flashing a variety of colors as the cockpit windows in front of you display a system's status check. Once the onboard computer finishes the pre-flight diagnostic, you flip the repulsors to active and feel the fighter gradually rise to a hover beneath you. All that was left was to disconnect the power umbilical. See you soon, guys, you whisper to no one in particular as you press the button to activate the comlink. Starfighter Control, this is Moonstaff. Surprise package is fully operational and ready to switch to internal power. Roger, Moonstaff. Outside, you see the two mechanics who had been standing by rush toward the fighter and briefly disappear around the right panel before they reappear with a large power cable dragging behind them. On your screen, you see that the fighter is running off of its onboard power cells, and a prompt appears with a button to activate the solar reactors, but you remember Poe's warning not to touch it until you're in the air. You quickly press the button for the comlink again. Starfighter Control, surprise package is running on internal power, and I am ready to commence operation. Roger, Moonstaff, you're clear for departure. Lightly pushing forward on the engine control, you're only mildly surprised to find that the fighter instantly responds to your smallest movements. As you reach the hangar center line, you turn to face the exit, pausing briefly before increasing power and gliding towards the doors. As you pass through the hangar exit and into Dakar's blue sky, you hear a voice floating through the comlink. Dauntless departing. May the Force be with you, Moonstaff. You pull into a slow climb and brace yourself against your seat as you reach for the blinking button on the screen. Immediately, the fighter leaps forward as the reactors start, and you start the shield generators as you pull the fighter up into a steep climb, rocketing away from Dakar's green surface and everyone you cared for, and toward the deep reaches on the unknown regions. They all had the utmost faith in you, and you couldn't let them down, especially not Annie, or Ladson, or Poe, or Finn, or Rey, or Leia. They all had invested their time and energy into preparing you for this, and you had to put all of your feelings for Kylo aside and focus on the mission. It wasn't just about the Resistance. These were people that had taken time out of their lives to help train you, and you couldn't bring yourself to disappoint them. You owed them. In some small way, you did. And if this is what you had to do to repay that debt, then so be it. As you reach the edge of the asteroid field, the red ring around the hyperdrive section on the console turns blue, and you enter the coordinates for SaSS and the navigation profile before plunging into the swirl of hyperspace. You let idle thoughts float around your brain, trying not to think of what Kylo's reaction will be upon seeing him, knowing you were only going to psych yourself out, or what your friends were doing back on base right now, knowing that it would only hurt too much and you might be inclined to just turn around and head home and forget this whole thing. Even still, at this point in your trip, you don't think you'd even have enough fuel to get home as you gaze at the route Chewie had planned for you. It took you past the desolate obsidian plains of SaSS, the watery depths of Yetu, and the jungles of Nohaon and Takodana before coming to a stop over the pale deserts of Jakku. The planet looked completely pale and lifeless, an antagonism to Rey's vibrant personality, and for a moment you could briefly appreciate why she didn't want to go back, and why Poe and Finn had gone to such great lengths to set up that green room for her. Remembering how much the First Order loved to serialize everything, you double-check that you have the fighter's serial number memorized and linger over Poe's note one last time before you tear them both up and watch as they disintegrate into ionized puffs. You can do this. Tear. We'll be there to get you before you know it. Tear. We all believe in you. Tear. Can't wait for you to get back, winky face. And they're gone. Pushing away the unpleasant emotions that had started to bubble in your chest, you call up the fighter's recall homing to return to the Resolute, engage the hyperdrive, and immediately regret it. This jump was different than any other you had taken, and you can feel your nervous energy slip into a knot in the pit of your stomach as the vortex outside twists and turns through the uncharted unknown regions in a way you had never seen. Chewie had better gotten this right, because I definitely have no idea where the fuck I am now, you think to yourself before the vortex dissolves into the black emptiness of the middle of nowhere. You couldn't see any ships, but you felt like this was the right place, although part of you was concerned that this was simply the bond reactivating, signaling that you were close to Kylo's physical presence. If you could barely stand the anticipation flowing through you now, how would you react to even just being in the same room with him? Acting on instinct, you turn the fighter around, and through the windows ahead of you, you suddenly spot it, a dark gray wedge almost invisible against the blackness of space, flanked by the pale silhouettes of two smaller escorts. Suddenly, you see a swarm of TIE fighters headed towards you from the Resolute. Given how close they were, they couldn't have just launched from the Star Destroyer, so Kylo had apparently sent them to be on guard and expect you after all. You weren't quite sure what that meant, if it had to mean anything at all. As they close in, your console screen flashes red, and you can hear the sound of targeting alarms before the comlink crackles to life with a short, clipped tone that was so characteristic of the First Order. To be honest, you had gotten so used to the colloquial familiarity of the Resistance, and you had to silently remind yourself now what exactly you were getting back into. A part of you was suddenly afraid. Very, very afraid. Rogue pilot, you have entered a restricted area with stolen property. Fighter Silac Julian 59207 was confirmed destroyed over Candoria several weeks ago, so you have much to explain. Proceed directly to the port main receiving hangar and do not deviate from course, or you will be swiftly destroyed. You just tilt your head to the side in consideration and decide not to answer as you proceed towards the Resolute, and on your tracking scopes you can see that the squadron of TIE fighters have closed into a tight formation around you to ensure you went directly to the ship and nowhere else. For a brief moment, you consider engaging the weapons to take out the fighters and give Poe and his friends a few less ships to worry about when they were in the air, but you thought better of it. You didn't know the weapons controls even half as well as they did, and they would probably shoot you down before you even did anything. Some distance away from the white-rimmed hangar, you feel a jolt and the hum of the reactors dies away beneath you as a message pops up on the screen. Tracker docking active. So, apparently, they weren't going to let you dock normally after all. You couldn't really say that you were surprised, although a small part of you assumed that Kylo Ren wanted them to dock you, not only so there was no chance of you escaping, but because he probably didn't trust your piloting skills. Not that you could blame him. A few years ago, he knew that you didn't know how to fly even a simple transport shuttle. Little did he know that you had been training with the best pilot the Resistance had to offer. As much as you didn't know how much he had changed over the past few years, he had no idea who you had become either. You didn't know how much you had changed, how much you had grown, how much stronger you were now since your last meeting. That was something you wanted to use to your full advantage. The tractor beam guided you through the containment shield and into the massive hangar before landing the fighter neatly at the end of a long row of fighters bearing the same red accent as the one you were flying. Outside, you could see a platoon of stormtroopers surrounding the fighter, but no sign of Kylo Ren. That was probably smart. You figured he could probably sense your approach, just as you had sensed him, but then again, there was always the possibility that this could be a trap of some sort, so it made sense to send the troops to check first. Regardless, you weren't going to just sit in there and wait for them to figure it out for themselves. You opened the overhead hatch and climbed up, where you were hauled out onto a platform by two stormtroopers who escorted you down a set of stairs and into an awaiting circle of stormtroopers who all had their blasters raised. None of them looked like they had any real authority over any of the others, and so you simply held your hands up by your head, showing that you meant them no harm. "Hi there," you say as brightly as possible. "I've come to seek a private audience with the great Kylo Ren. I believe he is expecting me." You wait for them to answer. You wait for them to be confused or to ask your name, but instead one of them just fires a stun blaster into your side and you immediately drop to your knees from the force of impact. You try to get up, but your vision is swimming and you can feel them getting closer, surrounding you as your vision slowly fades to black. You're still hanging on to the last waking threads of consciousness before you hear a muffled voice through one of the helmets. "Take her to Ren." Well, at least you were here now. You didn't know what to expect when you opened your eyes, and you let Poe's voice drift back to you for a final time. Good luck. Luck would only get you so far. The rest, you would have to do yourself.